him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight on a special Friday edition by Bruce Kuntz, here to talk Dodgers spring training. More importantly, though, to talk spring breakout roster. Excuse me, Bruce. Thanks for joining us. How's your Friday going?
Thanks again for having me, Jeff. I'm always happy to be here. I just got off a men's volleyball broadcast. Long Beach, the best team in the nation. So another sweep win for them. So I've had a great Friday.
There you go. I love to hear it. I want to start the show by just apologizing and correcting something. At one point, I said spring training results don't matter at all. And if the Dodgers lose, then you should ignore all of those things. And I want to correct that because the Dodgers have now won 8 in a row, Bruce. And there is nothing that's more predictive than spring training results. The Dodgers are definitely going to win the World Series. I'm convinced of it after they beat the Mariners tonight 6-4.
Spring training is the ultimate time to say narratives only matter when they are positive towards what you want to promote. So I love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I was getting into an argument with Blake Williams the other day on Twitter, and because he was like taking Dave Roberts at his word. It's spring training and taking Dave Roberts at his word. You do it when it confirms your narrative, and you ignore it when it doesn't confirm your narrative. Again, Dodgers win 8th in a row. We were chatting right before, neither of us following this game super closely, but box score hunting a little. Conforto, home run and a double. Justin Robleski, another really impressive performance. Jack Dreyer, another hitless, scoreless inning with 2 strikeouts for him. You're a guy, I mean, Conforto's obviously new and at the big league level, not that you don't follow the big league level, but Robleski and Dreyer, kind of 2 guys that are having great springs, young guys that I know are sort of prominently on your radar. Yes,
very excited about both of them and what they're going to do in the big leagues this year. Obviously, Robleski didn't have the greatest of big league debuts last year, was up and down. He was an interesting case to follow because he was so good in Double-A to open the year, and it was the command that really was the big thing for him, that he just was pinpointing his pitches so well that nobody could hit him. Once he got to the big leagues, that changed, and it was very interesting how that just kind of flipped on its head, and it didn't seem like he found his rhythm again. With a whole offseason to reset and get back to himself, if he comes back with the plus command that we saw last year in Double-A, I still think that he's going to be a really quality innings eater throughout the season. And then Jack Dreyer, he's been nearly untouchable. I said it in the offseason that when the Rule 5 decision timeline came around and the Dodgers had all the guys they looked at, Jose Rodriguez, another guy pitching this game, was one of them that they had to think about whether they were going to protect. Carlos Duran, the whole cast of characters as usual, Austin Gauthier as well. And they left some valuable players unprotected. They did not leave Jack Dreyer unprotected. And that was a sign of faith immediately, because those 40-man spots at that time in the offseason are so valuable. For the Dodgers to give one to a reliever meant that they like him a lot, and we can all see why here in spring. That fastball is filthy, and he's going to be a big part of the bullpen this year, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've been rolling out our spring training interview series over the past week and a half or so. I don't believe we've posted it yet, but we've got an interview with both Justin Robleski and Jack Dreyer that will be coming. And alongside Ben Kasparius, I was telling you right before, what I love about all 3 of those guys, super thoughtful, super respectful. Like they listened to the questions and gave really thoughtful answers. And just the way that they think about pitching, the way that they communicate it, well-spoken, kind guys. So 3 guys that I promise you Dodgers fans will be super easy to root for over the coming days. And look, you don't have to choose, okay? Like you don't have to be a Ben Kasparius or Justin Robleski guy. You could just be both or girl. You know, Jack Dreyer reliever. You don't have to. It doesn't make you less of an Anthony Bonda or Alex Vesia person if you like Jack Dreyer. So good stuff there from the Dodgers pitchers, and it will be exciting to see kind of how that plays out. And then Conforto, like I mentioned, when I got a chance to interview him, it was the day after he had laced a double off the wall against the Rockies. And I kind of asked him, I said, hey, is that the type of thing? He had struggled up until that point. He's a new guy to the Dodgers. And I said, is that the type of thing that has the potential to get you going? And he said, yeah, like making solid contact, seeing the ball hit the bat where you want it to, and launching one to center field makes it feel good. Well, since then, he's 6 for 15 with 3 doubles and a home run. And I don't know what your thoughts were, Bruce, when Conforto got signed, but I have really high hopes and expectations for him this season.
Well, I remember your very bold take last time I was on. You said that you think Conforto
That's
could have
true.
a better year than Teoscar, and that was a bold take. I think everybody will hold you to it. I'm reminding the audience of it now, but I think Conforto is going to have a really good year, and I'm excited to see how he is able to handle. He's hitting without any pressure, and
Yeah.
for a guy like him that is a really good hitter, has shown it a lot in the big leagues throughout his career. To step into a roster like this where he's going to be hitting in the bottom half and not expected to provide all the offense, I feel like the sky is the limit when he's going to see a lot of fastballs and a lot of pitches to hit. It could be a really fun year for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other fun storyline that came out of this was started as a not fun storyline, ended up as a fun storyline, was Matt Sauer, a guy that I'm going to be honest, most Dodger fans, myself included, not super familiar with. Was a Rule 5 draft pick of the Yankees last year out of the Royals organization. Did not last the entire season at the Yankees. Got sent back to the Royals, who then sent him down to AAA, where he continued to get shelled. He was a non-roster invitee for the Dodgers this season. It has not been a great spring for him. He gave up 4 runs tonight in the game. But the cool moment, and I think this is kind of just peak Dave Roberts, Bruce, is that in the midst of taking him out of a game in which he struggled, Dave Roberts had a few minutes to chat with him, and the reporters asked him after, hey, what was going on there? And he said, I was getting a chance to inform him that he was going to be able to make the trip to Tokyo with us. He'll be on the travel roster there. So kind of a cool moment for, again, you think about this guy's last 12 to 18 months, changes organization, struggles, gets sent back, struggles again, shows up as a non-roster invitee. I just love the human side of Dave Roberts, and for him to be able to read that moment and give the guy something special in the midst of what I'm sure felt like a pretty terrible moment for Matt Sauer was kind of cool.
Yeah, Dave Roberts is as good as it gets, and these are the kind of reasons why it sounds like going to get rewarded pretty quick here with an extension, and he fully deserves it because with the team that as talented as the Dodgers are year after year, it's the people management skills that gel it all together and allow the Dodgers to win year after year like they do. You're right that not a lot of other managers in baseball would feel good about going out and telling a guy after he has a tough outing, like, hey, you're traveling with us. That's a pretty big piece of news to deliver. And it shows the personality of Roberts to choose a spot like that where he's going to say, hey, this guy's probably a little down right now. I'm going to lift him up with this news instead of waiting till after the game or anything like that. So I'm a big Dave Roberts fan. I think anybody who's ever heard me talk about him knows that. And this is another reason why.
Yeah, and look, he's also a guy that's about to be a lot richer by all accounts. They're trying to get this deal done before they leave for Tokyo. By all accounts, it's going to be the richest contract that a manager has ever received. It's going to be the highest AAV that a manager has received. I guessed 5 for 50. I guess I'll ask you, Bruce, like the only number I'm really questioning there is not the 10 million AAV, because I think it's going to be in that ballpark. I'm wondering if 5 is too little. Like, I wonder if he's going to be able to get 6 or possibly 7 from the Dodgers.
I'm good with whatever they give him. I think that he's earned whatever he goes to the table and says that he wants. Dave Roberts is going to be the Dodger manager for a very long time, and he's absolutely earned that distinction.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. By the way, admin in here saying, chat, you get to vote. Do you want Justin Robleski or Jack Dreyer interview posted tomorrow on YouTube? So let the admin know in the chat, the moderator know in the chat. And stay tuned to the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube page, because one of those will be posted. Here's the good news. The other one will eventually be posted. I don't know if they're going to make you wait, but it might be a Saturday, Sunday type of deal. We will see. Let's get to the spring breakout roster, Bruce, because the Dodgers have announced their roster. I'm going to throw this up on the screen so that we're not just reading 100 different names for you. Here is the Dodgers roster: 9 pitchers, 3 catchers, 8 infielders, 7 outfielders. Some big names. Obviously, the Dodgers have a number of huge prospects: De Paula, Hope, Jackson Ferris, Joendry Vargas. Some of the names here. I guess let me pause and I'll just ask this. Tell me, as a prospect guy, how much do you love the idea of the spring breakout?
This game is everything that any prospect person has ever hoped for. I know when they announced it last year, it was like, okay, there's my spring training Super Bowl, circle the date on the calendar. It's going to be like that every spring. So it was really fun last year seeing some guys that was kind of the coming out party for Edgardo Henriquez, to let everybody know that he was back and with a vengeance. He came out and shoved in that spring breakout game, and then it was all great season for him from there. So this roster is really a fun one to me. I'll just jump straight to why the thing that stood out to me. It's a very young roster. Like, this is a bunch of guys that a lot of them haven't even reached single A. A fair crop of them are single A, high A. Like, this is not an upper minor leagues assortment of talent. And that's really exciting to me because these are usually the guys that you haven't seen as much. Once guys get to AA, AAA, you can watch them anytime you want. But for these guys that have played in rookie ball and single A, sometimes they don't have broadcasts. Like, this is going to be a chance to see some names that there isn't a lot of public footage out there on. So the trio of infielders, the rookie ball guys, ML Morales, Joendry Vargas, Kellen Lindsay still hasn't appeared in an official game. Like, it's a really cool assortment of talent, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. What can you tell us? Like, what do you think the philosophy is? I mean, obviously it's not as simple, I don't think, as just like, here are our best prospects at all of these positions. When you look at this list, do you have a sense of maybe what the Dodgers were thinking and how they compiled this group?
My guess would be that they're choosing from the talent of guys that haven't gotten that spotlight yet. I don't have any direct insight to know what their thought process is here, because there's obviously some prospects missing. Like, you can talk about Dalton Rushing, you can talk about some of the other guys that it seems like they went and took the guys who could be in the big leagues this year and left them off. So yeah. I would assume that's intentional based on how this roster turned out. And either they're throwing us a bone and giving us a chance to see some guys that we haven't seen as much of, or it's some other reason that they're doing it, but I'm happy either way.
Yeah, it is crazy. Obviously, guys like you are way more in tune with Dodgers prospects. And so when I look at some of these names, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've heard of most of them. And yet I'll say this, Bruce, when I look through this list, the number of guys that I have heard of, either because they were top draft picks in the last few years, or just guys who have been in the top 10, 15 of most of these prospect rankings over the past couple of years, it's kind of ridiculous when you really think about it. I mean, you look at the catchers, obviously the Dodgers have historically been loaded there, but even the outfielders like Eduardo Quintero, like, would probably be this 8th or 9th guy that maybe we mention on this list. But he's a guy that, depending on what prospect list you look at, some people have him creeping towards like the top 5 in the organization. You mentioned Emil Morales and Joendry Vargas, who some people think are kind of top 100 guys or close to top 100 guys. Kellen Lindsay, Chase Harlan, some guys who were high draft picks. Jackson Ferris, who's arguably the top pitching. So, I mean, I know I'm just repeating names here, but I guess I'm just it's shocking to me how many of these names I recognize, with the caveat that you just importantly mentioned. None of these guys are going to be in the – I mean, Ferris is probably the only guy who has a chance of being in the big leagues. I would say it's a very, very small one. Another guy that we have an interview up, by the way, on our YouTube page. But, I mean, other than him, none of these guys are really even close, and yet I've heard of them, which speaks to the depth of the Dodgers farm system. And so when you say this is the Super Bowl for a prospect guy, I can understand why. Let's go through the pitchers quickly. Ferris is the headliner. Hyun-Suk Jung, who, I apologize if I mispronounce that. I know as a kid, I remember doing a story when they signed him from Korea, and it was a big deal because it was really late in the year. It was a bizarre international free agent time. They had a bunch of money that they threw at him, and we had a guy from Korea come on and basically say, like, oh, this guy's, like, some people think the Dodgers might have something, and here we are a couple of years later. So those are the two names that jump out to me. Reynaldo Yin, a guy who's been with the big league club in spring training. But talk me through the pitchers, kind of where your head goes to when you see that list of 9 guys.
Yeah, Jackson Ferris is the top pitching prospect. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at the list. So promise I'm not tweeting right now. But Ferris, he's looked good in camp so far. The fastballs went up to 97. And when the Dodgers traded for him from the Cubs, they scrapped the sweeper that he had when he was drafted, turned it to a harder slider. That slider's touched 89 this spring, and I'm really excited about that pitch. So Ferris is ceiling is the sky. Hyun-Suk Jung is the same thing. He struggled with command last year, but the stuff is just ridiculous, and it's a deep arsenal that I'm excited to see how it plays on a full TV HD screen like this. This will be the first time seeing him like that. The guy that I'll tell you that I think, two of them that I think could have a chance at the big leagues this year, other than Ferris, and probably have a better chance than Ferris, would be Chris Campos and maybe even Lucas Wepf. Campos, I think, if the Dodgers need a depth starter somewhere, kind of the way Wrobleski came up last year, almost like I think Wrobleski did come straight from AA.
He made a small stop in Oklahoma City, and I only know that because I crossed paths with him when he was in Reno. So that's the only reason I know that is I got River Ryan and Wrobleski both, like, at the one moment they were both in Oklahoma City together before they made their debuts.
That's right. It was one start in Oklahoma City, but pretty much went straight up. I think Campos will most likely start the year in Oklahoma City, but if the Dodgers need a depth start somewhere, I think he's a guy they'll look at. He's Rule 5 eligible at the end of the year, and he could be one of those it's right into the mix of depth starters for the next 3 years. And then Wepf is a high octane reliever, Canadian guy that is really interesting. His swinging strike rate the last 2 years has been really good. He's a little under the radar, relief only prospect, but the results have been really good. He got hit a little bit when he got to AA last year, but I think the stuff's good. And if he were to kind of just take off, he could elevate to the big leagues pretty fast. Jose Rodriguez is the other one that I'm kind of on a long tangent here, but Rodriguez was a non-roster invite this spring. He's going to have to be rostered at the end of next year. Otherwise, he's a complete goner in the Rule 5 draft. So if they need middle relief innings somewhere in the season, he's a guy they could look at too.
I love it. Well, I mean, look, when I ask a prospect guy to talk about 9 different people and look, I've talked to enough of you, Bruce, to know that this is a passion project for you. And so to give you a list of 9 and say pick 3 is like an impossible task. Let's go to catchers. Fernandez is kind of the name that if people have heard of these guys, he's there. Am I right? Is Quintero the guy who's played a little bit of catcher too? I know he's listed as an outfielder, but
he was signed. He was signed as a catcher and then immediately moved to the grass. So he's not actually a catcher.
Okay, fair enough. Fernandez, though, the headliner to me on the catcher side. Is that just a uninformed opinion, or is he kind of the big ticket?
He's a headliner here. It's hard to say this without sounding like disrespectful. This is the weakest group out of this roster, because the catcher situation in the organization has changed very fast these last couple of years, because rushing is right on the doorstep of the major leagues now. Cartaya got traded away. Lorenzo got traded away. So Zyhir Fernandez, I don't even really consider him a full-blown catcher prospect anymore. He played more second base than he did catcher last year in Tulsa. I think he's more of a utility man than he is a true catcher. Nelson Quiroz and Carlos Rojas are both filling out the group here, but neither of them are top prospects. So Fernandez, I would guess, will get the start behind the plate in this, because he's the biggest name guy here on this list. And I hope that he'll get a chance to catch a little more this year. I think that him playing second base more than catcher last year was not necessarily the Dodgers giving up on his catching, but it was a Tulsa roster that had Dalton Rushing, Diego Cartaya, and Griffin Lockwood-Powell all on the same roster, and Zyhir Fernandez. There were just no catching innings to go around. Yeah. So this could indicate that he's going to go back to Tulsa and try to start catching a little more this year.
I love it. Infielders and outfielders, this is where I think you can have a conversation of which of these position groups is more impressive. Harlan, Lindsay, Morales, Vargas are the headliners for me in the infield group. Not to say, obviously, that those 4 guys will be on the field at the same time, but we know that the offensive side of the prospect, the organizational depth has not been strong. Like we've seen pitchers come up in wave after wave after wave to the major league level and make an impact. When you look at the infielder and outfielder list here, Bruce, this is what gives me optimism that in the next 3 to 5 years, that's going to change. And we haven't even gotten to the outfield, which is De Paula and Hope, who most people would say are the 2 best prospects outside of Dalton Rushing, who's not included here. But let's stick with this group. Morales, Vargas, Lindsay, Harlan. Who are you most excited to see in this game?
It's impossible to choose. I think my answer is ML Morales, because I'm really excited for him coming stateside this year, coming off the Dominican Summer League MVP award. He's already gone deep on the backfields, and I got a video of that. He just leaves the yard to the opposite field like it's nothing. The easy power stroke that Morales has at his age, he just turned 18, is otherworldly. So he's another guy that, the whiff concerns always there with a lot of these guys that are young power studs, but I think Morales has 30 home run potential. And that's the thing that sticks out about both the infielders and the outfielders here on this list. The ceilings are just crazy. They did not go in here and choose low ceiling, high floor. They went straight for the big guns. And this is not even close to all these guys are going to be big leaguers, let alone quality big leaguers, but there could be some all-stars thrown in here. Like, it's exciting names. Morales is the top of the list for me. Kellen Lindsay was the first round pick last year. The other guy, that Joandre Vargas, I think that he's already falling a little bit victim to prospect fatigue, just because the year after he was signed and came up through the DSL, all of a sudden here's ML Morales, the new Dodger infield shortstop toy that everybody wants to play with. Vargas and Morales are both equally pretty much exciting right now. I think Morales has a tiny edge for me, but not by much. Chase Arlen has huge power potential at third base.
Is Harlan the high school? Was he the high school kid they drafted last year?
Yeah, third rounder.
Yeah.
And he had some injury stuff to work through at the end of last year, but he's back hitting now. Obviously, he's playing in this game, so I'm excited to see what he does in his first full year in the organization. This is long here on this infield group, but I want to talk real quick about Logan Wagner.
Great.
He has been so good when he's been on the field, and he's barely been on the field. So if Wagner can have a full season this year, he could skyrocket up the ranks.
What's his background? Tell us a little bit about him.
High school draftee out of Florida, had a strong commitment in college, but was able to be signed away from it. He's a corner infield guy, played mostly first base with Rancho Cucamonga, but that's not because he can't play third. It was just a ridiculously crowded infield. His switch hitter, more pop from the left side, more contact from the right side, but can hit from both. Wagner, if he stays on the field, this is a very legit bat. So I'm excited to see him play in a bigger stage like this, and just please let him stay on the field. It's been I believe it's both hamate bones that he's broken in his hand, one the left hand, one the right hand, that have ended his seasons the last 2 years. I believe that's correct. Don't quote me on it, but that's where my mind goes. Just has not played a full season. If he can do that, then there's a lot to be excited about.
26th ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline. And I'm not quoting Bruce's rankings because they're yet to come. So stay tuned on that front. But yes, 6th round pick in 2022, second highest bonus the Dodgers gave out. So
yeah,
MLB is weird because you might hear 6th round pick and think one thing, but just look at the size of the bonus. That'll tell you pretty much more than anything else. All right, let's get to the last group here. The outfielders. There's a world where we see Zyhir Hope, Josue De Paula, and then I guess you could take your pick if you're a Kendall George or an Eduardo Quintero guy. But there's a world where we see 3 of those 4 on the field at the same time. And I imagine that Bruce Kuntz will have a smile on his face when that happens.
I will have all of my OBS clip footage open. I will have probably a game going on 3 different monitors. I'm going to be in heaven at that point. This outfield group is the one position group that stood out to me most on this roster as just ridiculous, because every single guy here is a top 30 prospect in the organization. Like, pretty much anybody you ask is going to say that. So Josue De Paula and Zyhir Hope, those are the 2 guys that got non-roster invitees. As a 19-year-old for De Paula, 20-year-old for Hope. Sky's the limit for both those guys. They're, like you said, the top prospects in the system that isn't named Dalton Rushing. So I don't even know if focusing on those guys, we've talked about them a lot.
Yeah.
So
more guys that we'll have interviews of, by the way, posted on our channel coming soon. So it was a fun interview when I got to De Paula, because I had already interviewed Hope and we had kind of connected. And so when I'm interviewing De Paula, Hope walked right behind, and I kind of made a comment about like, oh, this is your guy. And then Hope jumped into the interview. So those guys are really good friends, which makes it fun as well. So, but to your point, there's been lots talked about Hope and De Paula. So the rest of this group, to your point, you've got George, who knows what he is. You've got Quintero, who people are intrigued by. You've got Sirota, the newest guy who just came over in the Gavin Lux trade. I know some people, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there's people that like him too. So take this wherever you want.
Ching Eisen Ko is they signed him. He was another one of the guys like Hyun Suk Song that was like off the regular path of IFA signees. So I think it flew under the radar a little bit, but they gave him mid 6 figures. Wow. He's legit. And he's a guy that could be like 5 tool. He might not be like the greatest at any one of those tools, but he's going to contribute in all over the game. He went straight to the DSL last year and played pretty well there in a short sample size, but coming stateside, I'm excited to see what he can do. And then Eduardo Quintero is the guy that I'm really focused on here. This is going to be a big season for him. He tore through the Arizona Complex League last year like it was nothing. The hit tool is very legit. When he got to single A for like 30 games at the end of the year, it didn't go great, but he was an 18-year-old there, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But he's a real hitter. He's not a big frame, but he still impacts the ball pretty well. I believe that my tool I have on him, I was just doing his write-up yesterday. I've got a 60 on the hit for future and a 45 on the power. And then he's a 70 runner, good center fielder. Like, this is a guy that he's not going to hit 30 homers, but he's going to be a really good player all over. So out of all these teenagers, Quintero is one of the guys that has the best potential to reach the big leagues. There's not as much risk here. This is relative because you're still talking about a teenager. But a full season in single A, I'm excited to see what he can do.
It's just your normal signed as a catcher, transition to center field sort of a thing that you see all the time, you know?
Everyday story, yeah.
Yeah. Was it Dalton Varsho? He's kind of the only guy that I can think of who I think catches and plays center field.
Yeah, and Varsho is an incredible defender. Quintero, they signed him as a catcher, and then his athleticism was just so good that they couldn't keep him in the squat and put him out in center field because they were like, you're a 70 runner, you have to take advantage of that.
I love it. Jared Elkins, with all due respect to Jared Elkins, we didn't mention him. Do you want to just say a couple things so that if his mom is watching this show, she gets to hear a little bit of talk about him?
I'm glad you caught me on that because he definitely deserves to be mentioned. He's a freakish athlete. Like, this guy has quick twitch. He was a high school running back and was a stud. He was a little under the radar on the draft radar. I'm saying radar twice, but it was because he was such a running back that he wasn't like fully on the baseball scene like some of these other guys in the draft. But the Dodgers snagged him, and he had a really good year in the Arizona Complex League last year. There's a lot of whiff, so that's something to be mindful of. He struck out, I think it was like 35% of the time last year, but impacts the ball well. He's a great runner. He's a good defender in the outfield. He's kind of like the inverse of Quintero, where the glove and the speed are the same, but he's power over hit.
Yeah.
So he's just such a good athlete and freakishly strong, and he's going to be exciting to watch too.
I love it. All right. I mean, so give us the overview here as far as spring breakout game. Like, how does this work? When will people get to watch? Do you have that information in front of you?
Yeah, I don't have the exact date. I know it's the
March
Thursday.
13th. Sorry, I just found that piece.
So, yeah, 6:00 on March 13th. Last year they just streamed it on MLB.com. I don't even think you needed an MLB TV subscription. I don't know if they're doing it that same way this year, but I would think they will. They're trying to make this an accessible thing to grow the prospect intrigue. But yeah, 6:00 last year, it was like a midday game that was they played it on the same day as a Cactus League game for the Dodgers. So there was like no attention. This year it's getting the full spotlight. It's being played at Camelback Ranch. Last year it was in Tempe. So they're playing it at home now. I'm hoping they're going to have StatCast set up for it because that's in Camelback Ranch now. So I have no reason to believe why they wouldn't. So 6:00 on March 13th, you said?
Yeah, against the Cubs.
6:00 on the 13th. Be planted in front of your TVs because there's a lot of high ceiling guys to watch here.
They will have the ABS system going, the automated balls and strikes system. So I don't think that's like, it's a different system than StatCast, as you mentioned, but I think they're sort of related. Like, it looked like when we were there, the same person was kind of doing both of those things.
If you have the overall tracking stuff set up, I think that they tie into each other.
There you go. So there you go. March 13th, Dodgers, Cubs. Again, a huge list of prospects that you'll see on the Dodger side for sure. Let's get to a couple questions. It's going to be a shorter show. We're going to be out of here in about 5 or 6 minutes, but we did have a super chat a while ago from Richard. Richard said, for 2 years now, CT3 has fallen faster than the Kardashian family values. He's as useless as a bottle of steak at a vegan restaurant. Can we put him on the 162-day IL? I've seen better swings in a park. Richard, that's 4 consecutive dad jokes. Congratulations to you for that. Bruce, do you have any thoughts on Chris Taylor? Like, are we all sold out? Is our portfolio emptied of Chris Taylor stock, or are we still holding on to a few shares?
I'm not quite off the train quite as much as I think that he is, but
yeah, Richard's way off.
Yeah, Richard is clearly way off, which to each their own. I respect Chris Taylor so much that it's hard for me to talk anything bad, but the at-bat quality has not been good this spring. I'm still the kind of person that I don't want to put too much weight into spring training. And I think part of what might help his case to at least stay on the roster to begin the season is that it hasn't been a terribly great spring for some of the other guys that are competing for that last roster spot. James Outman hasn't done too well. Kim hasn't done all that well. Andy Pajas hasn't been the greatest. Like, nobody has really taken that spot by the reins and ran with it. So I still think that Taylor will probably be on the opening day roster and given a chance to prove that he's different this year. But I don't think it's going to be like last year where he has unlimited run. I don't know for sure if that's what it was last year, but it's going to be a shorter leash because when those roster spots come down to the wire, he's going to need to prove that he's back to a contributing player to keep one.
Yeah, absolutely. One other note, by the way, if you haven't heard about the pop-up complex Dodgers Murakami kind of thing that's happening, check out the Dodger Blue YouTube page. We were invited by Complex to be there when the pop-up opened. The stuff, if you're into kind of the artsy fashion sports intersection, let me tell you, this is the place for you. I believe you can find the stuff at Fanatics, Nike, and at Complex, all on their websites. But again, Matt had a great interview live from the event, talking to the director of integration, I believe was his title, just talking about how it came to be, that kind of thing. So again, Complex, the Dodgers, Fanatics did a pop-up shop, and it's open all weekend, by the way. So if you're watching this live or even after the fact on Saturday, it's open for you. Let's get to a couple more questions here. I'm going to pronounce this right because I've been apparently in the chat threatened that I can't. Lahala Poppy, how about that for you? He says, honestly, most of our prospects haven't been legit since who? Smith, Gonsolin, Bobby Miller. Looked like that, but I can understand why the Dodgers hang on to their prospects as long. This has kind of been like excuse me. This is the answer. This was the question I meant. Sorry. Lahala Poppy did pronounce it right. He said, since our roster is so stacked, why not trade prospects who might not ever make it for future top picks, first, seconds, thirds, etc. So I'll answer part of this. Most draft picks cannot be traded. You can trade competitive balance picks, which the Dodgers have done. In Gavin Lux, they got a second round pick. So that's why you can't trade these guys for draft picks necessarily. But Bruce, just the bigger picture, zoom out a little bit. We just mentioned how stacked this Dodgers roster is. These are all guys in basically single A and lower, it feels like, a couple double A guys. And they've got even more guys that aren't on this list, the Jack Dryers, Dalton Rushings of the world, who are kind of still with the big league club or will be hanging out in AAA this year. So even though you're a prospect guy, does there come a point where the Dodgers need to start sort of consolidating some of these guys, packaging them and moving them either for bigger prospects or for sort of ready-made major leaguers?
There is a point, and they've reached it before. They just did with Michael Busch, and that's where they traded away Busch for a couple of single A guys that were not sure things. And now look, you've got Zyhir Hope and Jackson Ferris both pitching in this, or both playing in the spring breakout game, and they're two of the top prospects in the system. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis with the specific players. It is not a bad thing to have a fantastic farm system while you also have a fantastic big league club. Doesn't mean that you should be blowing up that farm system recklessly. And that's why the Dodgers are able to sustain their success, because obviously the first thing you think of with the Dodgers, a lot of people now, is going to be the payroll. But a lot of these guys that are contributors, they're on those rookie contracts. The Ben Kaspariuses, the Justin Wroblewskis, these names that come up, bounce around from the minor leagues to the majors. You can't have a 100-win team without those guys being there. And it's the Dodgers' ability to have a great farm system year after year that replenishes all those extra innings, both on the hitting side and the pitching side, that allows the machine to keep churning, even with those top salary guys at the top. The Dodgers do it all great. So I think my opinion, this is something that is asked like a ton, and It's a good question, and it's like a valid concern to have, but the unsatisfying but true answer is to just try to be as glad as you can that the Dodgers are so good at that as they are, that they have a great major league team and they're able to keep the farm system good at the same time, and just be happy with that,
Totally. It's just a whittling down process too. Like, we're talking about 15 guys that we like who are single A and lower.
Yeah.
3 or 4 of those guys are eventually going to. So if you start packaging these guys and you package the wrong ones, it's sort of a war of attrition. And then you've got the major league level of just the wide range of needs that you'll eventually have. So I think the Dodgers, in a sense, would rather have the Hunter Fiducia and James Outman types, who would probably be starting other places. Dying on the vine is an extreme example, but they would just rather have the organizational depth sitting at AAA, even if they don't, quote unquote, maximize their value from a trade perspective, because they just want those guys around in case they ever need them. And I think that's the situation where we're looking at. So you
don't want to trade away a rookie ball guy now because the organization feels packed, and then have that wind up being Yordan Alvarez that you traded for Josh Fields, and totally. The Dodgers are careful in that regard.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Eden, I see your comment. You said, thanks for the Gavin Stone interview. Appreciate it. That was a fun one, mostly because we got information on his shoulder injury that wasn't public prior to that. He has a whole new shoulder, which is not great news, but he did say everything's moving along really, really well. I knew you were going to get asked this question, Bruce. I don't know if we talked about this last time, and I want to clarify before you read this and come to any conclusions. Don't Care 187 is taking after my friend Matthew Moreno, and he's spreading fake news and he's lying. So the question is, because it's a super chat, we appreciate you. Does Bruce hate cheese like Jeff does? When he says Jeff hates cheese, what he or she means is Jeff does not hate cheese. Jeff loves cheese. Jeff eats more cheese than probably 95% of the people watching this stream. I just have 2 places where I think cheese is unnecessary. It's not even that I don't like it. I just find it unnecessary. And I went to Chipotle today, and Chipotle is one of the places where I just don't think cheese is necessary. I'm not talking queso. I'm talking shredded cheese. In my opinion, Bruce, is that if you're getting a Chipotle burrito or burrito bowl, if you have guacamole and if you have good salsa and if you've got sour cream and you have meat that's been flavored well, you don't need cheese. You've got enough great flavors there and you don't need it. I also think that cheese on a sandwich should be melted. And if it's not melted, then I could live with or live without cheese on a cold sandwich. So those are my opinions. I don't hate cheese. People think I hate cheese. I'm fine. I'm going to defend my honor every time I come onto this show. And Matt can continue to spread fake news about me. But there you go, Bruce. There's my opinion about cheese. So like everybody else, pile on. Tell me what a bad opinion it is. It's all yours.
I'll say for the unmelted cheese on a sandwich, I'm completely on board with you. I think cheese needs to be melted. Otherwise, it's going to take away from the overall vibe. For a Chipotle bowl, I think cheese, you can talk about whether it's necessary and you can talk about whether it adds. I still think it adds. When I get a Chipotle bowl, I get extra cheese because I like that extra ingredient in there. But I don't think it's necessary. Like if I walk in and I say, let me get my bowl, and they say we're out of cheese, I'm not going to pinwheel and walk out of the restaurant and say, well, I don't want my bowl anymore. It's not a complete requirement, but I do think it adds a little bit. So I'm somewhere in the middle of disagreeing and agreeing with you.
There you go, Bruce, the smartest person we've had on the show by far with the answer that you just gave. So kudos there, although Laura agrees with you, extra cheese. But yeah, literally, I almost took a picture from Chipotle to post on Twitter just to feed the trolls a little bit of me ordering my bowl with no cheese. And you know what? It was fantastic. Guacamole, sour cream, the combination of those two things with pico de gallo mixed in, extra pico, is like top tier flavor to me. Yeah. So I needed nothing else in my life other than those three things.
I'm kind of in a tough spot, and I hate to admit this over the airwaves. I love guacamole. I've loved avocados my whole life, but at some point when I reached adulthood, I'm now allergic to avocado. So I can't have guacamole as much as it pains me. So maybe that's why the cheese helps still. Reiterate, I wish I could have guacamole. Yeah. Please do not come at me and say I don't want guacamole. I wish I could, but I can't.
No, don't worry. There's somebody on our show, and somebody in the chat will probably remember who this is, who I believe their hottest food take is they hate avocados. They're just out on avocados. So
see, why couldn't that person have been allergic to avocados and not me? Because I love avocados, but I can't eat.
I'm with you. And I know multiple people, by the way, like being allergic to avocados is now a thing. So I know lots of people. That's very sad. As you pointed out, guacamole is great. And it's not Scott, by the way. Scott is not the anti-guacamole. There you go. Anthony slander. Wow. It was Anthony. So Blake/admin/moderator nailed it on that one. So there you go. Let's see if we get one more question because, holy smokes. Oh, wow. You just got a Justin Herbert lookalike comp. So there you go.
I'll take it.
There you go. Justin Herbert, big Oregon guy. But which, by the way, there was one other comment here. So someone was like, where's Jeff from? He's a Dodgers fan, but he's also a Raiders fan. He lives in Oregon. So I'm from Southern California. I don't know, younger than some of you, older than most. When I was growing up, the Raiders were in Los Angeles. So being a Raiders fan from Los Angeles, that's how I came. And by the way, Bruce, are you an NFL guy, Bruce?
I'm a big NFL guy, and I'm completely on the opposite spectrum from you. I'm born and raised Denver Broncos. Broncos are my grave. I'm a diehard.
Okay, well, Bo Nix, my guy, go Ducks. Justin Herbert, also my guy, go Ducks. But the Raiders made a sweet move. They traded for Geno Smith. I'm not saying we're going to be winning the AFC West anytime soon, Bruce, but we're way more competent today than we were yesterday, and I'm fired up about that.
That was a good trade for the Raiders. I'll agree with that. I think Seattle should have tried to get more. Starting quarterbacks are rare to come by in the NFL these days, and Geno Smith is a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you. What I love about Geno Smith, and again, I'm not going to out anybody here, but there's some people that I know that may or may not be in the room who are anti-Geno Smith people. I'll say this. When the trade happened, every smart analytics NFL person that I follow, every single one of them, loved the trade. Pro Geno Smith. He's underrated. Nobody appreciates him. The line sucks. Yada, yada, yada. So there we go. Fired up about that. Okay. Dodgers question to end this. Sign stealing scandal says, who are some potential intriguing Quakes for those of us driving out to Rancho to see a game this year? Obviously, we don't have rosters fully announced, but somebody like you, I'm sure you have a pretty decent sense of who's likely going to be there. So give us a couple of the guys that I imagine you will be at some Quakes games that you're most excited to see.
This spring breakout roster is a fantastic intro to this because there's a lot of these guys that are going to be heading right to Rancho Cucamonga. I think Joandre Vargas probably will break the season there. Eduardo Quintero almost certainly will. Jerron Elkins probably will be there. I think Kendall George probably moves up to high A to start the season, but Chase Arlen might be there. There's a lot of these guys that if you look at this roster for the spring breakout game, any of these guys that have not reached above rookie ball and haven't maybe played a full season in single A, they're probably going to see Rancho Cucamonga at some point this year. So, I mean, it could be practically half this roster of guys that are going to see time in Rancho Cucamonga. So there's a lot of really good names to be excited about. Hyunsuk Jeong, I don't know if he'll head straight to Rancho or go up to high A to start the season, but I'll say if he is still in single A to start the year, go see him while you can, because he won't be there long.
Okay, there you go. Don't Care 187 says Jeff is not welcome in Wisconsin because of my cheese takes. Lahala, who I'm just going to keep pronouncing it just to troll you. Jeff is not welcome in Lahala, San Diego. So shout out to Lahala, San Diego. We appreciate you, Lahala Poppy. There you go. I'm glad we're in on the joke on that one. So, folks, thanks for hopping in with us on a Friday night. We appreciate you. Again, this is going to be a short one because it's a later show, but I will be back, I believe, with Anthony Witrato on Sunday night. So make sure to tune into that. We'll get some more coverage as we get ready for the Dodgers to take off for Tokyo. Again, the Dodgers beat the Mariners. They've won 8 games in a row. They're the greatest team in spring training history, which definitely means they're going to break the regular season wins record. So go ahead and place your bets on that. But more importantly, as we talked about tonight, the spring breakout game, March 13th, coming up. So about 6 days away. Mark your calendars, 6 p.m., Dodgers, Cubs, a bunch of the top prospects in the Dodgers organization. And what's cool, and I'll add this to end, Bruce, what's cool about looking at this list is one of my favorite things about being at spring training and watching spring training is not actually seeing like Freddie Freeman, although that is cool. It's seeing Josue De Paula and Dalton Rushing and Zyhir Hope and Jackson Ferris and those guys. So what's cool is you're going to have seen every single Dodgers top prospect at some point this spring if you watch the spring breakout, because some of these guys are doing both, but all the top pitchers and Dalton Rushing and all those guys are at the major league camp. And then all the guys that you haven't seen there yet or have already gotten sent back are going to be in the spring breakout game. So you get a full view of basically the whole top 30 in a sense.
It's awesome. Yeah, I completely agree with you that spring training, the best part of it for me is seeing some of the guys that I like it because it's the new introduction for a lot of these guys to most of the fan base. And I get to watch along and try to do my part to introduce them to everybody as well. So spring training is a great example of that. I'm going to have my top prospect list out soon. Can't make any guarantees that it'll be out before the spring breakout game because I'm a busy man, but I'm going to do my best. If it's not, then it'll be out soon after. So a lot of these guys are going to have a lot of words written about them, and I can't wait to get that out.
I love it. And we're already making arrangements. Once Bruce has his list and Justin Lorber of Future Dodgers has his list, we're going to get the three of us on one of these shows, and they're going to yell at each other about whether Emil Morales should be ahead of Joe Hendry Vargas or something like that. I don't know. They probably.
I'm definitely a yeller. Definitely a yeller.
Perfect. Yeah, you and Justin seem like just two guys that get really, really mad. No. Hey, everybody, we appreciate you joining us again. That is Bruce. You can find him at bnicholas7 on social media. Bruce, we appreciate you hopping on and joining us. Folks, joining us, thanks for hopping on YouTube with us. Again, you can subscribe, ring the notification bell here. We are still rolling out some interviews we got last week in spring training. We mentioned either Justin Robleski or Jack Dreyer will be posted tomorrow. We'll see, probably the next one on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. We got a lot more that have not been released, so we're excited about that. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. As always, go Dodgers. And still champs.